The Channel Mom Show, celebrating you with Jenny Dean Schmidt.
Brought to you by Pediatric Dental Group of Colorado, creating positive and rewarding dental visits for kids of all ages since 1977.
Oh my goodness, I love ABBA. I love ABBA. Every time I'm on the show, I sing this song like the rest of the day. I'm such a geek. We kept Julie around with us for this next segment because it's going to be an interesting conversation. We welcome you to call 303-297-1510 if you've got a question. I'm really, I'm here to love every mother. And I never want a mom to feel turned off by a subject matter. I want them to feel like we embrace them no matter what their opinion is on the subject matter. Yeah. But I really wanted to get into this because this is really a cool, interesting topic to me. This is the Channel Mom Show, by the way. We are right here on Mile High Sports Radio, AM 1510, FM 93.7. I am your host, Jenny Dean Schmidt. You can also check us out on ChannelMom.com and on iTunes. We've got a podcast there, so that's kind of cool. Okay. As I promised, we're going to get into a little controversy this morning in all the right ways. We're going to talk about two subjects that you do not bring up at parties. You think that Democrats and Republicans don't like to mix? How about God and science? It's controversial to talk about how God and science don't go together or do go together, but it's an issue when it comes to teaching your kids because they may come home from school. If you're somebody who attends church or attends synagogue or whatever it is that you go to and you come home, your kids come home from school, they sometimes think, oh, sorry, but what I learned in science nullifies all that. And I don't think that's necessarily the case, so I will admit I have an agenda here. We're going to tackle the issue with a trained scientist and an award-winning author. She's been nominated for the Pulitzer twice. She's won a Christie. She just released a new book, The Stars Shine Bright, which I'm reading voraciously. I love it. Really, really good. She writes beautiful little novels. And she's also a mom. That's what I love about her. The mother of two sons, just like you, Julie. And she makes her home in Washington State. We want to welcome to the show the author of The Stars Shine Bright, Sibella Giorello. Is that correct, Sibella?
Hey, you got it.
Okay. Great name. Yes, we're so glad to have you. I've got Julie with me, too. She may ask you some questions. Okay, you've got a really cool story. You went to Mount Holyoke College. You are a trained, you have your degree in geology. Is that correct?
I do. I'm not a trained geologist.
Okay.
But I have a degree in geology, and I keep up with the science.
Yeah. Well, to me, you're trained then. So I'm just going to, I know there's a distinction, but I think you're trained. And you have written for the Richmond Times-Dispatch. Journalism is your love. You were a journalist for many years. You now also write novels. By the way, how do you fit your kids into all that?
Well, I started writing the novels when I was home with the kids. I left the paper, and they went down for naps, and they were good sleepers, and I would just sit down and just crank away. Newspapers train you, I'm sure, like radio. You're up against a break. You can get a lot of words out, right, before that break comes. Well, journalism, same thing. It trains you to just get those words out.
Yeah. You weave in, first of all, you and I are all about being gentle. We want to love every person out there, every mom out there. We don't want to start a political dispute or a faith dispute. Never about that. Just wanting to love moms and equip moms. But I do know this is an issue for a lot of moms. They don't for their kids, they don't necessarily know how to reconcile science with whatever church or faith their child has been brought up in, because the world will tell you that they don't agree.
And
go
here's
ahead.
the thing. We have this black and white either-or idea about science and God, and I think we made a huge mistake there because both of them drained when we did that. The life and the essential questions are gone from both sides when we do that. Really what it comes down to is just simple observation. If you're looking at nature and you're in the beautiful state of Colorado, what you have around you is spellbinding and breathtaking. I grew up in Alaska. I feel the same way. It's why I went into geology. How did this happen? Where do these things come from? A simple rock. Where did that come from? Why is it in my driveway? That sort of thing. When you go to study all of this, it's really inescapable unless you do have a dogma attached, that there is a design to all of this. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to get preachy or anything about it, but to look at the way a plant grows, that it comes back. All right, the snows you get in Colorado, how do those plants come back every spring? This is a miracle to watch the seasons come through. The leaves fall. It looks like the trees are dying, yet they come back. These things are so complicated. They make, the Apple motherboard look like Fisher-Price toy.
Yeah.
It's just we have to be acknowledging that there's something grand going on.
Yeah, is it not true that if you break down everything, there's information in everything? In cells, there's information. In plants and rocks, there's information embedded in everything, correct?
Correct. And I started out, when I was a geology major, I started out as a staunch evolutionist. I really mocked the creationist side of things and thought,
Really?
These narrow-minded people. I wrote a whole senior thesis on it. Those people are just silly. But as I started to read more, I had to really question what I believed, which, again, is the essence of science. Doubting your own conclusion is what science is about. And I was really troubled by the fact that these hard-hearted attitudes were coming in. When we would look at evolution, I go, there are a lot of holes in that theory. And here was my big problem. We're saying random chance created all of this. And as I stopped to think about it, I thought, this is like saying a tornado could go through a junkyard and build a 747.
Right. I agree with you.
That's not what we see. We see this random chance causes destruction and randomness. So there was this essential flaw with what I believed. And as I went to just look more into this, I just became more and more convinced that it's. I think we've hijacked Darwin. I think some of his ideas, his adaptation of the species, is dead on. We see adaptation. What we don't see is evolution.
Right.
We've never observed it. We have no record of it in the fossil.
Isn't it microevolution versus macroevolution?
Correct.
And people have latched on to macro when, in fact, there's just a microevolution going on?
Right, which is just adaptation. Evolution would mean that, a zebra was once a fish kind of thing.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I've read, I read the Dawkins, I read all those books.
You do? Good for you. So Dawkins, well-known atheist, by the way.
Oh, his book is a joke. In one chapter, I counted probably like 45 shoulds. This should or could or would. It's not science. It's this guy's ideology, and he's taking the science and he's shoehorning it into his argument, which is not science.
You are very well aware that on page 133, 134 of your new book, The Stars Shine Bright, and we are talking to Sibella Giorello, the author of The Stars Shine Bright, you launch into a controversial character, a gentleman named Harlan Burt, or Bretz, correct? Who had a theory that the terrain in Washington's flatlands were created by a great flood and not by continuous forces exerted over millions of years, which is what science was saying. So you kind of discovered that his theory, which basically went along with the Bible, was correct. Very controversial. I mean, tell me about that. And I may not be getting that quite right, but so go ahead and tell me. You've got that inserted into your book into a lovely way. So tell me what the deal is there.
Here's the deal with Brett. He 1929, he's out walking this part of Washington State, eastern Washington, and looking around going, this is like a lunar landscape. How in the world was this formed? You've got these coulees, which Grand Coulee Dam is now there. They look like enormous bathtubs for giants. They're flat-bottomed and straight-sided. And he's thinking, this does not look like gradual evolution where you get kind of jagged lines of things. So he was checking the soil in the middle of these things. The soil did not match any of the surrounding geology. He had to track it all the way back to Montana to find the source material for that gravel in there. So he finds this, he comes up with this theory. He's like, the only thing that could cut through this stone like a buzzsaw is water. And the amount of water I'm talking about is beyond human comprehension. It's like a biblical flood. That phrase, like a biblical flood, got him branded as a crank. And for the next 50, 60 years, he was banned from publishing in peer journals, all these. I mean, the amount of bigotry and hate that was lobbed on this guy who had a PhD in geology was crazy.
He was ostracized.
Ostracized. So then around the 50s, we had new equipment from World War II, and we sent up engineers, geologists, hydrologists into the air, and we were taking a lot of aerial photos of the landscape, which we could now. The cameras were good enough to do this. And what they saw was that solid rock, old volcanic basalt, rolled. You know when a wave comes into the beach and then it pulls away and you get that ripple in the sand?
Yes.
That was in solid rock, those ripples. And these hydraulic engineers were scratching their heads and saying, do you know the amount of water it would take to do that to stone? Well, sure enough, there was this massive glacier in Montana. It melted within 24 hours. We're talking about miles of ice. Melted within 24 hours and sent a flood, just like tipping over a bucket. And it washed across Washington State Portland, which is at the Pacific Ocean, about 500 miles away, was under 400 feet of water.
Yeah.
Portland.
Yeah.
So the amount of water that came through, so Brett's was right. Well, he was 94, I believe, 94 years old back in 1997, and Congress finally awarded him the greatest medal in geology, the Penrose Medal.
Yeah. Because they acknowledged that it was a flood of biblical proportions.
He was right.
And he wasn't a crazy guy.
He wasn't crazy, and the amount of bigotry that was put on him, and that's not science.
Yeah.
We have to get away from this black and white either-or idea. There's a blend here.
And Julie, how do you ask away? Julie has 2 boys that she's training. What do you think?
And I guess I would love to know, just as a mom, and maybe you're getting to this, but how do you where are the resources? Like, if you're a mom that's stuck and you're wanting to honor your kids' belief either way, or maybe they have some really poignant questions that you haven't considered.
Yeah.
Where are the resources? Like, how can a mom arm herself to be open to what their kids want to explore around that?
And Sibella, you got about a minute and a half, okay?
Okay, very quickly. The thing I recommend for elementary school, I'm a homeschool mom, nature journals. Have them just observe nature, draw ferns, draw a flower, watch the seasons, pick up these leaves that fall. Have them just look first before we fill them with dogma.
Right.
Let them just appreciate creation.
Yeah.
It is created. Let's look at it. Then, around later years of elementary school, whatever your beliefs are and what conclusions they're coming to, there's lots of great resources out there about whether you want to go with a grand design and leave sort of the specifics out. For us, we believe in God. We believe in Jesus Christ. So we go with that. Look, God created this world, and it's unbelievably complicated and beautiful and gracious.
Right. And he also created the programming that you spoke of, the information.
Yeah.
And so the complexity is also from that.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's fascinating stuff. And let me compliment you before we let you go, Sibella. Love your book. Just so you know, it's not a scientific book.
No.
It's
a novel.
She's woven science into it. It's called The Stars Shine Bright. There's romance in it. Just if you love a good novel, I recommend it, The Stars Shine Bright. Julie, I can lend you this book after.
Yeah, I'm excited. Start reading fast.
So congratulations on the book. And how can people look you up if they want to know more and if they want to know how to incorporate science into their kids' faith?
Oh, hit me up on Facebook, Sibella Giorello, author. I'm on there. My website is SibellaGiorello.com. If you just start Googling that name, it'll kick up my website.
And can they get your book there too, Sibella?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Hey, we thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks. It was great. You gals are fun.
Oh, good.